If you kill him, you'll have to kill me too.
Daughter, stand back.
I won't! I love him, Father. Look around you. This is where the path of hatred has brought us. This is the path I choose, Father. What will yours be?
In order to find out about Pocahontas in different media, the following part will deal with Pocahontas in song texts. Therefore, I will analyze the song Fever by Peggy Lee, Pocahontas by Neil Young, and Pocahontas by the German band Annenmai Kanterei. The song Fever by Peggy Lee is a love song which describes fever as a metaphor for being in love. The song text says, "You give me fever when you kiss me."
When you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight. Fever in the morning, fever all through the night.
As an example, the song text describes Romeo and Juliet who felt the fever when they were together. Pocahontas comes in when the lyrics say, Captain Smith and Pocahontas had a very mad affair. When her daddy tried to kill him, she said, "Daddy, oh don't you dare. He gives me fever with his kisses, fever when he holds me tight. Fever, I'm his missus, Daddy, won't you treat him right?" One can see that there is the assumption that Captain Smith and Pocahontas had an affair. Pocahontas is represented as a hero who was willing to fight for her love and prevented her dad of killing her beloved one, Captain Smith. During the song, the point of view switches to Pocahontas and she explains her dad that Smith gives her the fever and she demands for her dad to treat him right. Pocahontas is presented as being torn between two sides, which is on the one hand her father and on the other hand her boyfriend. The second song, Pocahontas by Neil Young, deals with the massacre of Indian tribes by European settlers. It is written from the perspective of a Native American, which says, "They killed us in our teepee and they cut our woman down."
They killed us in our teepee and they cut our women down. They might have left some babies crying on.
The narrator explains that he would give 1,000 pelts to sleep with Pocahontas and find out how she felt. This shows that the narrator wants to find out about Pocahontas' feelings and how she felt when the European settlers arrived and killed Native American tribes. Once more, the figure of Pocahontas is sexualized because the narrator wishes to sleep with her. The narrator also wishes to sit by the fire with Marlon Brando and Pocahontas, which refers to Marlon Brando, an activist for Native American rights, who can be considered as a hero. But since the narrator wishes to meet these two together, it also refers to Pocahontas as a hero. The next song, Pocahontas by the German band Annenmai Kanterei, describes a broken relationship. The song does not give any detailed information about the circumstances of the breakup, but only describes that the narrator is sorry. It seems like he is torn between letting her go and not being able to let her go. He cares for her and it seems like he does not want to accept that their relationship is over. In this context, it can be assumed that Pocahontas is a metaphor and does not refer to Pocahontas herself. But again, the figure of Pocahontas is used in context of love and relationship. Looking at all three songs, one can find similarities as well as differences concerning the representation of Pocahontas. In all three songs, Pocahontas is instrumentalized and her figure is sexualized. Every song puts Pocahontas in the context of love and relationship and does not regard her in the historical context, except for the song Fever, in which the narrator describes her assumed relationship with Captain Smith. Pocahontas is used as a metaphor for love. She is either described as Pocahontas herself and put into the context of love as in Fever by Peggy Lee or Pocahontas by Neil Young, or her name is used as a metaphor for love as in Pocahontas by Annenmai Kanterei. The main difference is that even though the overall topics, love and relationship, are the same in all three songs, each song shows another perspective on how Pocahontas is seen. The first song, Fever, assumes that Pocahontas had a love affair with Captain Smith and she was torn between her father and her beloved one. The second song describes her as an activist, just like Marlon Brando, who fought for Native American rights. The third song describes a broken relationship and the narrator feels responsible for their breakup. Looking at these three songs, one can see the different and ambivalent legends about Pocahontas. Many people think that they know about the myth and have heard the name Pocahontas, but nobody seems to really know what she actually did and what she fought for. It would be really interesting to find out why she's often put into the context of love and relationship.
Over the centuries, there have been several tellings about the Pocahontas saga. It has been controversially discussed amongst historians, and yet, the story has been told in various versions from various perspectives. This video will draw the light on a few perspectives in order to create a broader picture. We are going to take a look on different representations in media and pop culture, but also on the historical facts that create the different narratives of the Pocahontas saga. Pocahontas, a hero. Not only was she the princess and daughter of the leading figure Powhatan, but also the lover of Captain John Smith. She saved him from dying while throwing herself on the captain and offering her own head to her father during a ritual that is supposed to kill John Smith, her lover. 2 great stones were brought before Powhatan. Then, as many could lay hands on him, Smith dragged him to them, and thereon laid his head, and being ready with their clubs, to beat out his brain. Pocahontas, the king's dearest daughter, when no entreaty could prevail, got his head in her arms, and laid her own upon his to save him from death. This quote was from John Smith, The General History of Virginia, New England, and the Summer Isle, from the year 1624. It describes the scenery of a girl that sacrifices herself in order to save John Smith. Although it is not the first historical mention of Pocahontas, it is the most common one. According to Smith, he is captivated by the Indians, and the young daughter of Powhatan travels through the, quote, irksome woods to save Smith from an initiation that includes killing him. Her motive was rescuing John Smith because of the love for him. Later on, the story says that she marries an Englishman and goes to England. Eventually, she reunites with Smith in England. As already mentioned, this is only one part of a never-proved story. John Smith's storytelling is a written document. However, as the Powhatans had an oral culture of storytelling, the story has never been written down back then. Yet, Dr. Linwood, in The True Story of Pocahontas, The Other Side of History, takes the attempt to tell the story from the Indian perspective in order to draw the light on the existing narratives of the Indian community. John Smith's perspective is a very romanticized perspective on the love between Pocahontas and himself. It's a story of sacrifice and resistance against her father in order to save him. The book, however, tells another story. Pocahontas is said to be between 9 and 10 years old when John Smith arrived in 1607. John Smith, to that time, was about 27 years of age. Her real name was Mataoka. They were neither married nor involved. According to Linwood, Pocahontas never even saved John Smith. As Pocahontas was said to be Powhatan's favorite child, and they had a very close relationship, she was very well watched and therefore never really actually saved John Smith. The book argues that Powhatan never intended to actually kill Smith, since he was being initiated. English colonists were feared by the Powhatans, and as they captured John Smith in order to show their power to the English colonists, they later on decided to make Smith one of them. In addition to that, children were not allowed to attend such rituals. Therefore, Pocahontas never sneaked into Jamestown to warn Smith in any shape or form. With the age of 14, Pocahontas married someone from the clan and soon after got pregnant, so she already had a child. Since she was the Powhatan's daughter, she was a popular target. As told by the book, she got kidnapped and was brought to England, where she was raped and had her second child. Now, the two narratives differ very heavily from each other, and it has been a fairly controversial topic, since there is no real proof of the story between Pocahontas and John Smith. Although there have been several more perspectives on Pocahontas, I would like to take a look at this commercial picture from 1940. Pocahontas has been depicted as the savior of the Jamestown factory. Her face has become the success of the colony, which is still depicted in a very contemporary commercial, inconsiderate of the different depiction by Native Americans. Pocahontas is shown as a brand. You can see her face, and it is depicted as a very beautiful Native American woman.
My name is Tarkan, and we are going to talk about how Pocahontas is portrayed in pictures or paintings in that regard. So, the first painting is by John Gadsby Chapman, with his painting called The Baptism of Pocahontas in 1840. This is the most significant painting of creator Chapman. The painting can be found in Rasmussen and Tilton's Pocahontas, Her Life and Legend, published in 1994 in Richmond. This painting hangs in the rotunda of the United States Capitol building in Washington. The picture shows Pocahontas in a white dress, kneeling, which symbolizes a lower position in power, demonstrating that she is obeying. The crowd surrounding shows that on the picture there must be some kind of ceremony, as the title claims, a baptism. Funnily enough, in history, details about Pocahontas' baptism has never been gathered. It is possible to think that Chapman tried to influence the way American society looks at the Pocahontas topic, so it leads the viewer in a specific direction. For this painting, Chapman chose a moment that Pocahontas converted into another religion, which might, historically, not even be true. It is a moment Pocahontas somehow loses her Native American identity in order to gain another, white identity. However, this could be debated controversially, but it is still an interesting perspective. Interestingly enough, Chapman was born in Virginia and went to Europe, Italy to be precise, and studied to become an artist focusing on landscapes and portraits. If we put that to contrast to Pocahontas, who was born a Native American and forced to go to Europe, we can see a similarity here. Tilton also analyzed this picture in one chapter and hints to the moment of absorption. If you want, you could even say that this is just some other kind of whitewashing in the mid-19th century. Now, let's look at another painting, which shows the most popular scenario regarding Pocahontas. The artist's name is Alonzo Chappell, and the painting was published around the Civil War and can be seen in the Art Museum of Western Virginia. It shows the moment Pocahontas saves John Smith from death through execution by the Powhatan's tribe. Not only has this scenario been animated by Disney, as you have seen in the intro, but also many other artists drew the scenario, which romanticizes a relationship between Pocahontas and John Smith. This depiction of Pocahontas idolizes Pocahontas as a hero that brings peace between Native Americans and English colonists. Considering that Disney chose to put this action into their animated movie Pocahontas, it is also the version that many people will see as their movies address a big audience. Note how Pocahontas has a way lighter skin tone compared to the picture previously. She is white as John Smith himself, while the Powhatan tribe leader who prepares his strike has a much darker skin tone. Why does this matter? It does because it's misleading. In the first picture, Pocahontas has a skin tone of Native Americans. Why did the artist of the first picture decide to draw her way darker than Chappelle did? Is it to somehow create a contrast between Pocahontas and the colonists, or Pocahontas and the Powhatans? Sadly enough, it cannot be answered this way, but it's important to note a detail like this and be aware of how color can direct you into thinking as Pocahontas as a Native American, powerless woman that gets baptized, or the white as John Smith hero Pocahontas. Let's go back in time for our last picture. The Discovery of America, painted in 1575 by Jan van der Straat, shows a naked Indian woman welcoming Christopher Columbus. Typically for pictures of colonists meeting Native Americans for the first time, the contrast in their clothing is always predominant. Columbus looks as he is wearing noble clothing that only wealthy people could wear, whereas the Indian woman is shown naked, standing up from a hammock. Notice how the Indian woman is thrown off a seemingly chill situation, probably was sleeping, to be interrupted by the European settlers. Columbus stands right in front of her and has a majestic-like pose, as if he is expecting her to stand up, communicating an imperative kind of behavior. The Indian woman is not only shown naked, but also obeying Columbus' wish. Now, you could ask yourself what this has to do with Pocahontas, but if you look closely, this picture summarizes the whole Pocahontas topic. An English colonist entering the land of the Native Americans and bring unbalance to them. So you could say that the metaphorical picture of Englishmen and Indian princes has laid its fundament by European artists drawing these kind of pictures. This has been our video on how Pocahontas can be approached in many different ways, and we hope you had a fun time watching this video and have a good time. Goodbye.